On February 15th, I celebrated what I passingly imagined was my 184th birthday. I've honestly lived so many different lives it's hard to remember. What I mean by that is sometimes life does not knock politely. It kicks the door off its hinges and rearranges the furniture while you're still standing in the hallway. A loss, a betrayal, a sudden ending, or even an unexpected opportunity can act like invisible crossroads, quietly redirecting the entire map of who you thought you were going to be. In the aftermath, there comes the strange realization. The person who existed before that moment now feels like a character from an earlier chapter. Someone you remember clearly but can never fully return to. Your life sort of just reboots and resets itself back to zero. You feel like you've returned to nothing and have to start all over again. New start, new life, new place, new people, over and over again in a process that ages your heart and soul much faster than it does the rest of you. It might make us seem wiser than our years, make us a little more philosophical after a bourbon or two, make us feel like heartbroken poets. But nothing ever ends poetically. It ends and we turn it into poetry. All that blood shed by our past stories was never once beautiful. It was just red. Starting over is not always a dramatic reinvention with fireworks and bold declarations. More often it is a quiet, steady process of choosing new thoughts, new habits, and new directions while carrying the echoes of the old life inside you. And in time, what once felt like an ending begins to reveal itself as something else entirely. The beginning of a life you never planned, but one that was waiting for you all along. But through it all, there are things that remain. Threads that weave themselves like sticky spider webs in between one life and the next. Common themes and motifs, vibrant memories that shape the cobblestones of our identity. The telltale signs that in spite of how we might carry ourselves, our core has cracks in it and holes where people used to be. The missing pieces of ourselves that make the tower of who we've become just a little bit unpredictable, even if we do hide it well. Much of my life is in hindsight now, introspective and curious, still plagued with a nagging sense of adventure. Through places, time, or books, I don't much care which. I live out stories and then I retreat to my study, open my old journal, and I write with these blood-stained hands. Then, I sit back and I read my journal out loud to whoever might be listening, if anyone at all. We sometimes like to think that we're unique in our stories that made us who we are today. That our cracks and holes are ours and ours alone, and no one will ever really understand us because of it. That is rarely ever the case. In my city, history does not shout. It whispers. It lives in the bricks along Washington Street, in the iron gates of Green Lawn Cemetery, in the slow, patient curve of the Sandusky River. And sometimes, it lives in stories that were never meant to survive. Today, we'll follow one of those stories. A love that unfolded here in the late 1800s and echoed into our time. By the 1880s, Tiffin was thriving. The arrival of railroads and the rise of the glass industry transformed it from a quiet river town into a bustling center of industry. Factories like the Tiffin Glass Company and Seneca Glass Works drew workers from across Ohio. Smokestacks rose from where farmland once stood. The air shimmered with heat and ambition. Among the families who prospered in this area were merchants and professionals whose homes lined what is now Jefferson Street. One of those homes belonged to a prominent local businessman and his daughter, Margaret Scherer. Margaret grew up surrounded by refinement, music lessons, church socials, summer promenades along Frost Parkway. As was custom back then, her life had already been mapped out before she was even old enough to question it. But love has a way of ignoring maps. Margaret often met Samuel Keller near the railroad docks. Sam was not from a wealthy family. He worked as a glass furnace laborer at the Tiffin glass works, enduring 12-hour shifts in punishing heat. His hands bore burns. His clothes smelled of coal and ash. Yet those who knew him described him as soft-spoken, thoughtful, and fiercely loyal. Their meetings were simple. Walks along Riverside Drive, conversations near the old wooden footbridge, moments stolen between the boundaries of two very different worlds. But in a town built on status and reputation, such relationships rarely remained hidden. Margaret's family discovered the connection, and to them, it was unacceptable. A glass worker could never provide the stability expected of their daughter, nor could he maintain the social standing that defined their future. Within months, Margaret submitted to an arranged marriage by her parents and was engaged to a rising attorney in Tiffin society, a man whose name appeared frequently in local newspapers of the time. The engagement announcement was printed in the Tiffin Tribune in the spring of 1889. Sam learned of it the same way the entire town did: in ink. According to local oral histories recorded decades later, Sam asked Margaret to leave with him. He had secured an opportunity in Toledo's expanding glass industry. A new life, a new beginning. For a brief moment she considered it. But leaving meant abandoning family, community, and security. In the late 19th century, such a decision could define a woman's fate forever. So she stayed. Margaret married in the autumn of 1889 at Trinity Episcopal Church. Sam left Tiffin within weeks. He never returned. Yet the story did not end there. Local accounts from the early 20th century residents mention a curious habit Margaret maintained for years after her marriage. She often walked alone near the river path at dusk and frequently visited Greenlawn Cemetery long before she had any family buried there. Witnesses described her always carrying a single rose. No one knew why. No explanation was ever written. But the pattern became part of Tiffin's quiet folklore. If this story feels familiar, it should, because in our episode, Everything You Never Knew About Love, I recounted my own lost love romance shaped by the same forces. Not lack of love, but timing, responsibility, fear of uncertain futures. Two people bound deeply, yet separated by the weight of circumstance, all revolving and evolving around a single red rose. What came from that story I'll not talk about here. I will say that I left the area just like Sam did. The only difference is that over a decade later I returned, and I was not the same as when I left. But the same story is one of those threads I mentioned before, a spiderweb of what-ifs linking one life to an entirely different one, an echo of the past vibrating in the fabric of today. I don't view my own story as a tragedy anymore. It's just a lesson. A lesson that every single choice we make alters the course of not only our own future, but the future of anyone linked to us. The entire timeline changes. Life is like a choose-your-own-adventure novel where you're not always the one doing the choosing. So be careful who you hand the book of your life to, especially if they have a feather pen in their hand. Love can turn gentle men into raging beasts, and many would be stunned at the levels of darkness and violence I was written into to become this reflective and gentle. Across more than a century, the pattern remains almost identical. Two hearts, one impossible choice. A life shaped forever by what could not be chosen. It raises a haunting question. Do love stories truly end? Or do they simply echo, waiting for another time, another pair of souls to live them again? Even if they are destined to end in tragedy so that the inherent lesson can be told to an entire new generation. We can't learn from the past if the past does not repeat over and over again. We would simply just forget. Somewhere along the river in Tiffin, you can still imagine Margaret walking. A woman bound by duty, holding a single rose. For a love that history never recorded except in this secret place where stories refuse to disappear. I don't know whatever became of Sam. I wonder if anyone ever got word to him that in spite of her choice to stay, Margaret wandered the riverbanks holding that single rose as if it were a manifestation of her regret. Or maybe it was a silent I love you to Sam long after he had left. Maybe it was a bit of both. I wonder if either would have brought him comfort. Did Sam end up like me, lamenting and passing into darkness over the life that was never granted to him? Did he, like me, attempt to fill the holes and cracks with things like history, art, poetry, and dreaming of the mere chance that one last epic true love story might be waiting for us, yet feeling like time is running out? Did it ever happen for him? Did he find what he was really searching for? Because I don't feel like Margaret did. Her rose is much different than my own. Mine came before the beginning, and hers came after the ending. It never seems like it's love that resonates. It's the darkness of not having it. Even the purest of hearts are drawn into the darkness. In it, we find ourselves alone, until eventually even the water stains on wallpaper begin to resemble something. And before you know it, you're staring at them, wondering how long they've been there. There is a secret law of emotional equilibrium. It says that too much love in one era creates instability, just as too much despair does. So there are forces that quietly guide events to maintain balance. Some couples are gently pushed together because their bond will inspire a community. Others are separated because their union would create destructive consequences down the line. No one meets another soul at random. An entire series of events must play out, leading us to everyone we've ever met. Friends, loves, even enemies. And because we meet them at that time, in that place, another entire series of events will unfold that never would have without them. This is the essence of the Sisters of Fate, and we are little more than their playthings. Pieces on the board set in motion to change entire futures. Create one, erase another. And in doing so, a celestial balance of the human experience is maintained. We are destined to love, and we are destined to lose it. Both hold so much power that it causes timeless echoes, parallel stories, and predictable outcomes, all hinged on two simple words that hold more power over time and what we are to experience within it than any others. The words yes and no. Roses. Some believe roses are semi-sentient memory vessels, not conscious like people, but capable of storing emotional imprints. Over centuries, these traces form a vast invisible archive of human emotion, embedded in gardens, cemeteries, and abandoned homesteads, which is why people often gift roses as a show of love, respect, or connection. When we touch a rose, we not only re-feel all of the love and loss we've ever experienced, but we also feel the inherent love and loss every rose that was ever gifted represents. From this comes countless stories. Stories that can be written and retold for generations until a pattern unfolds. And once we realize that there is a pattern there, it changes everything. We see and experience time differently. We frame our life experiences. We learn. We evolve. We become something more.